Welcome, Sagittarius, to your May Moon Magic 1 month forecast for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. May has 5 key lunations, including 2 quarter moons, always important, and is concluded with that powerful blue moon in your sign. I'm going to share the event chart from a Sagittarius perspective for each of those 5 events. The moon's very much about nurture, protectiveness, our emotional environment. But Mars, the planet of passion, of very different energy, is going to be truly influential this month too. By the end of the month, you'll have a clearer understanding of what's upcoming in terms of your energy, work, relationships, and finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. So on the screen, Sagittarius, is the full moon at the very beginning of the month in the sign of Scorpio, which for you is house 12, which can be very complex. The moon in Scorpio can be very protective, but particularly in the 12th house. The 12th house can stir our subconscious and also, to be honest, our fears. On the other side of the heavens, the sun is in the practical 6th house, very much to do with routines, our physical vitality, our work, our obligations. So the moon in that opposition with the sun could just prompt you at the very start of this month if something is out of kilter. For example, if you do feel really drained, is it just coming from too much physical exertion? Or is it coming more from energies that are not quite processed in terms of the more psychological domain? And what's going to amplify that sensitivity at the start of the month is Pluto, because Pluto is in a T square with the moon and the sun. And it's in a part of your chart to do with the way you think, but also the way you connect in quick communication. Pluto, of course, is very much to do with the power of different dynamics. If, for example, you work somewhere, the 6th house, where it's not a very supportive environment, the atmosphere is not great, or you don't get much acknowledgement, let alone thanks for what you do, I think that Pluto is going to amplify uh, that negativity, unfortunately, at the start of the month. What you do have at the start of this month, however, is that your ruler Jupiter, continuing his journey through the 8th house of your chart, can be to do with long-term finance, can be to do with intimacy, is in a very powerful link with Mars at the start of this month. Now, Mars begins May in Aries, where it's very much go-getting and it can really appreciate the thrill of the chase. The 8th house can be about sex. 5th house can be about confidently pursuing what we want. So there may be someone on your radar that you're really drawn to at the start of this month, not least because Uranus, newly arrived in your sector of relating, is perhaps pushing you now to step outside your comfort zone. But Venus, the planet which is very much about relating, is actually in a very stable link with Saturn at the start of this month. So if you're lucky enough to be in a good relationship, I don't feel that full moon at the start of the month is going to upset the balance. What you can do, if you've got creative talents that feel a bit blocked, is talk about or think about why that may be. Mercury's in the conjunction with Chiron as we go into the month. Now, if we fast forwards to the 9th, the quarter moon, the first of two. So quarter moons go in between the full and the new moon. From Earth, it looks like in the sky a half moon. And the moon is in the sign of Aquarius, the same as Pluto. The moon in Aquarius in the 3rd house could be quite outspoken. Because the sun is in the 6th house, that can create quite a lot of brittle energy. And also, it can perhaps create a dimension where if you feel a bit resentful about some of your chores and obligations, that tendency of Aquarius moons to push back on rules and regulations could show up. But just to say, Mercury moves on the 3rd of May into the practical sign of Taurus. So if the full moon did throw up something, that flower moon at the beginning of the month, that was out of kilter, that was to do with the detail of something not being attended to, Mercury will help that. In fact, in the middle of this month, Sagittarius, Mercury and the Sun merge. We get a cazimi, and that gives you even greater chance to get into the detail of things. But I want to just share with you that on this quarter moon on the 9th, despite that potential tension, the Sun forges a brilliant link with Jupiter. Now, Mars and Jupiter were in a right angle at the start of the month, giving that get up and go. They're still in touch in the square, but I really like that Sun Jupiter sextile. It's one of astrology's most fortunate influences. But I think if you're applying for a job, you could really do well, particularly because Venus is in the part of your chart that's very much to do with diplomacy, the 7th house. Gemini, very much to do with finding the right choice of words. And if you look at the position of the moon, it's in a trine with Venus. So as much as there could be tension around what you're not enjoying around your obligations, if you are pitching for a new job, doing a presentation, having an interview, it could go better than you might imagine. Which takes us through to the Taurus supermoon on the 16th. Now, supermoons, some would say, don't have a specific influence in astrology. It's more of an astronomical phenomenon. And on that note, to understand what moon cycles are about, I've produced a factoid. You can download it under this video. It tells you all about the astronomy, the astrology, the mythology, but also what the moon is like in each zodiac sign, but also in each house. You can download that beneath this free. So what we get on the new moon is the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus. It's our second favorite new moon after the Cancer new moon. And it's also in a conjunction with the sparkling energy of Mercury. So this means that if that work issue, which showed up at the start of the month, perhaps it's being with people you just don't like being around, and it's pushing you to change, it's entirely possible that something really good will evolve from that initial quarter moon, but it will accelerate on this event in a great way because Jupiter's still supporting the moon and the sun. It's not as exact on the quarter moon of the 9th, but it's still there. So I really like that. But the other thing, in purely a romantic context, if you are footloose and fancy free, look at Mars in that 5th house in the conjunction with Chiron, but it's in a sextile with Venus. So that's one of the sexiest aspects you can get because Venus finds the words in Gemini, Mars finds the desire and the drive and the passion, and the 5th house can be about risk taking. And with Uranus newly pitched up on your 7th house of relating, you're wanting a new relationship with someone, this particular new moon gives you a lot of encouragement to go for it. Which brings us to the quarter moon of the 23rd. Now, this does have some challenges. The Sun moved on the 21st into your sector of relating, merged with Uranus, and that can give you a desire to perhaps connect to different types of people, but it could also give you the desire to separate from a relationship that isn't working. And as I'm always saying, relationships have many different guises. It's not just about romance. So it could be a relationship you haven't been enjoying with a friend, maybe a colleague. But what we do have by this point is that Mars and Venus have both relocated. Mars into Taurus and Venus into Cancer. So your financial situation is what they help you with in the second half of this month rather than your romantic situation. But I think relationships can be perhaps challenged more around the professional sphere because the moon is right at the top of your chart in the square with Uranus for the first time, and the sun with Uranus in the mix for 77 years. So incredibly rare. But what we do have by this time is despite Mars and Venus being in that delicious sextile, Mars is in a brutal right angle with Pluto for the last 10 days of this month. And if those tensions that came up on the full moon at the start of the month still aren't resolved, they are going to manifest themselves in quite an awkward way. Mars and Pluto together is a hugely willful battle between two different energies. And although Mars in the sixth house can be more sacrificing, Mars in Taurus less explosive than it would be in Aries, I still feel a very stubborn standoff is possible towards the end of this month, which takes us to the blue moon in your sign on the very last day. So the sun has moved forwards. It's still in the first decan of the sign of Gemini, subruled by Mercury. So it's been a chatty first 10 days of occupation for the sun, but the moon in your sign is very much about freedom. Because you're a mutable sign, the moon's going to amp that up. So if you're not enjoying something of any kind, it could come to a boil as this month comes to a close. Also, because we have Saturn and Venus in a square as the celestial curtain comes down on May. So if you remember, they were in a sextile at the start of the month. They're quarreling by the end of the month. So if a relationship isn't really meant for you, it's going to show up by the end of this month. But look at Mars, still in that very intense battle with Pluto. So how do we summarize all of this, Sagittarius, for you? I think in terms of your professional work situation, if you are working somewhere which just doesn't really make you feel very appreciated, I think you should be proactive to change it. I don't think you should sit on your hands. Around your relationships, there's lots of different dimensions. I think the chance to meet someone new and exciting is extraordinarily strong. But if you're in a good relationship where you do both help around the domestic chores and you're very supportive to one another, I don't think the full moon at the start of the month will break the bond anyway at all. But I think the chance to improve your finances is definitely boosted in the second half of the month. What about energy? Because of Saturn going through Pisces for those 2 years and Uranus being through your sixth house, which can be about physical health for seven, I think the last few years have been very tough around your nervous system, exhaustion, finding it difficult to switch off and sleep, and maybe also some emotional issues through Saturn's journey through the fourth house. So the full moon at the start of this month does encourage you to keep working at your inner world and not be hung up about that. Because you're a very bold and often courageous sign, when you have setbacks, you dust yourself down and go again, but you often don't process the wound. So if there is still a wound around you, do look at it at the start of this month because it will increase your vitality. I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope reports. It's now 3 for the price of 1. You pay for your life roadmap report, which helps us to understand the patterns that are played out so far, but get a more intimate understanding of them and work with those energies future forwards that much better. Free, you get your 12 months transit forecast and also your draconic soul karmic analysis. 3 for the price of 1. Please see below for more. Why? I've been full-time for 30 years, but my interest in astrology came through when I was 14. The first classical album I ever got was The Planets, which is about astrology, not astronomy. And ever since then, it's been a major part of my life. Natal astrology helps us to really navigate this particular journey that much better. By sharing the love about natal astrology, I hope to help others too. Please see below for more. If you've yet to watch your May monthly forecast, please see that on the screen. Yet to watch your Pluto retrograde 5-month forecast on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, please see my testimonials below. And if you've yet to take advantage of my free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, please do so now. Get that early day celestial pit stop. And also, if you want to take advantage of my moon guide download, you can see that below too. Thank you so much for joining me. Please check out that moon guide under the video. Have a great May and look forwards to seeing you again soon.